With the premiere of Rebels Season 3 less than a week away, I got to thinking, should I provide an explanation of how Yoda was gifted his Kaibuck? But in addition to that, I was also wondering, as the show marches ever closer to A New Hope in the timeline, will the show's two Jedi, Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger, survive at the end of the show's run and live to see the events that were depicted in Episode 4? In this video expose, I will discuss why it appears more and more likely that Kanan and Ezra will not survive the Rebels TV series, based upon what we know about the future of the Inquisitors in Rebels and what was said in A New Hope. In considering whether Kanan and Ezra survive at the end of Rebels, a good place to start is with Yoda's quote to Luke in Return of the Jedi, wherein Yoda tells Luke, "When gone I am, the last of the Jedi will you be." This seems to give a good indication that as Jedi, Kanan and Ezra do not survive by the time of Episode 6, which would be roughly 7 years after the events of the Rebels Season 2 finale. However, this quote is not helpful to our question of whether Kanan and Ezra will survive at the end of Rebels, as it's possible that they survive the Rebels TV series, but die at some point between A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, thereby making Yoda's quote to Luke true. But Yoda's quote could also be made true if they do not survive at the end of Rebels. Therefore, it's just not helpful in deciding whether or not Kanan and Ezra survive past the Rebels TV show timeline. Further, one could always give themselves an out in regards to Yoda's words to Luke on the basis of what it truly means to be a Jedi, and how one defines themselves as an adherent to Jedi philosophy as seen through the interpretation of Yoda, which I have seen Dave Filoni, the executive producer of Rebels, do when considering the fate of Kanan and Ezra, as well as Ahsoka too for that matter. So on the face of it, Yoda's words to Luke that he will be the last Jedi upon his death are not helpful in considering the fate of Kanan and Ezra. But what about Tarkin's quote to Darth Vader from A New Hope, wherein he tells Vader, "The Jedi are extinct, their fire has gone out of the universe. You, my friend, are all that's left of their religion." This seems to be much more helpful, as it's said at a time that is very likely to be close to the period when the Rebels TV series will have ended, and seems to provide a strong positive statement that Tarkin confidently knows that the Jedi have been completely eradicated. And since Tarkin recognizes Kanan and Ezra as Jedi, and refers to them as such throughout Rebels, it seems to adequately confirm that they do not live past Rebels, and do not see the events in A New Hope. However, once again, the quote cannot offer definitive proof that Kanan and Ezra die by the time of A New Hope, as it's equally plausible that Tarkin is wrong in his belief that the Jedi are extinct. In fact, Tarkin is wrong in this view at the time he gives the statement to Vader, since at the very least, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda are still alive. Further, Tarkin has been wrong in his assessment that the Jedi were extinct prior to A New Hope, and as seen in Rebels. When Tarkin, as Imperial Governor of the Outer Rim, arrives on the planet of Lothal to personally deal with the rebel cell comprising of the Ghost crew, after rumors started to reach the upper echelon of the Empire's hierarchy that the rebels were being led by a Jedi, Tarkin is highly unconvinced that there's a Jedi amongst the rebels' ranks, and tells Minister Makith Tua that the rebel cannot be a Jedi, since all of them are dead, every last one of them. Of course, Tarkin is incorrect, as a Jedi, that is Kanan, was leading the group of rebels that he was trying to destroy. Therefore, we can't fully trust Tarkin's quote that the Jedi are extinct as offering definitive proof that Kanan and Ezra do not survive the end of Rebels, as he might be mistaken once again, and simply under the false belief that they, in addition to all of the other Jedi within the galaxy, are dead. So if we can't rely on the words of Yoda in Return of the Jedi, and Tarkin in A New Hope, how is it possible to argue that Kanan and Ezra won't survive at the end of Rebels? I believe that the most conclusive evidence for this position is found in the declining role of the Inquisitors within the Rebels TV series, as a way to stay true to the fact that they are non-existent during the time of the original trilogy. If we accept that the Empire moves away from their use of Inquisitors, then this could provide some reliable evidence that strongly suggests that Kanan and Ezra do not live to see the events of A New Hope. But how do we know that the Inquisitors will be less used by the Empire in Rebels as we move closer to the timeline of A New Hope, to the point that the organization of Inquisitors ceases to exist entirely by the time we get to Episode 4. In an interview with Dave Filoni, executive producer and showrunner of the Rebels TV series, when he was asked if we would see any more Inquisitors in the upcoming seasons of Rebels, after their ranks were significantly reduced in the Season 2 finale, Filoni states, "We'll have to wait to see, but we are getting ever closer to the time period of A New Hope, and I'm trying to live a little bit more by the rules you see in that film. And there isn't a mention of Inquisitors in that film. It might be something you see less and less of." Further, in an additional interview wherein Filoni similarly discusses the fate of the Inquisitors in the upcoming seasons of Rebels, he also states, "You know, you don't see these guys in A New Hope, so I had to start eliminating them. It was something we had to do, and we had to do it kind of quickly. It was right for the story." These are crucially important quotes, as Filoni strongly suggests a number of key points. First, a recognition that the Inquisitors cease to exist by the time of A New Hope. Second, that the Inquisitors are being removed quickly, by being killed off, to stay true to this recognition. And third, it isn't likely that we'll see more Inquisitors in the upcoming seasons. So why is it important that there's an absence of Inquisitors during the time period of A New Hope when considering the fate of Kanan and Ezra in Rebels? In order to understand this importance, it's necessary to recognize the role of the Inquisitors within the Empire. The Inquisitors, who were part of the organization known as the Inquisitorius, were Force-sensitive agents who served a distinct and important purpose within the Empire. Following the end of the Clone Wars and the rise of the Galactic Empire, although the majority of the Jedi had been killed as a result of Order 66, several Jedi were able to survive and escape to hide themselves within the galaxy. Knowing that these Jedi survived, and fearing the threat that they represented to his rule should they emerge to challenge him, Emperor Palpatine created the Inquisitorius, and tasked the Inquisitors comprising its ranks to track down and eliminate any and all Jedi who survived Order 66. Therefore, importantly for the purposes of this video, the primary mission of the Inquisitors was to kill the Jedi within the galaxy, which included Kanan and Ezra. Since we know that the principal role of the Inquisitors was to eliminate Jedi, and we know that the Empire, including the Emperor and Darth Vader, was well aware of the fact that Kanan and Ezra were Jedi and assigned multiple Inquisitors to remove the threat they represented, the fact that the Inquisitors are not needed and cease to exist by the time of A New Hope seems to provide some positive proof that the Empire, and particularly the Emperor, knows that they've been killed and their threat has been eliminated. There's another important piece to this puzzle that was touched upon in another interview with Filoni, which also provides evidence that the Inquisitors are gone by the time of A New Hope, thereby increasing the likelihood that Kanan and Ezra do not survive at the end of Rebels, and which also increases the importance of Tarkin's quote to Vader in Episode 4, stating that Vader is the last of, quote, their religion. Filoni's quote regarding the Inquisitors is long, but I think that it bears repeating. Discussing the Inquisitors' disappearance by the time of A New Hope, he states, "There's this idea that I like where Tarkin says to Vader, 'You are all that's left of that ancient religion. The Jedi's fire has gone out in the galaxy, basically.' I think that's true for the dark side of the Force too. A lot of what's evil about this empire is the lack of faith and belief in the Force. I think a lot of that falls through with the Inquisitors. They have their place, but as they're not needed anymore, as the fire of the Jedi goes out in the galaxy, it's not like the Emperor would even want all of these witches and wizards running around his kingdom. So it was important to thin them." Although I take issue with Filoni's point that the Emperor has lost faith in the Force and is turning towards the power of mechanization as embodied in the Death Star, his framing of Tarkin's quote is important for its potential to confirm that the Inquisitors have ceased to exist by the time of A New Hope. It's certainly plausible that when saying to Vader that he's the last of their religion, Tarkin not only means that the Jedi are extinct, but also that the Inquisitors are gone too, as they, like the Jedi, were Force-sensitive and trained in the ways of the Force. Again, the importance of framing Tarkin's quote in this way isn't that it confirms that he knows with complete certainty that the Jedi, inclusive of Kanan and Ezra, have been annihilated by A New Hope, as Tarkin may simply be mistaken about their fate, just as he was with Obi-Wan and Yoda. Rather, the importance of this framing lies in the fact that it confirms that the Inquisitors are extinct by this time period, something that Tarkin would have the requisite knowledge of. And if the Empire has done away with the Inquisitors by A New Hope, whose primary reason for existing is to track down and kill Jedi within the galaxy, it gives a strong indication that the Empire has positive confirmation that Kanan and Ezra have been killed. Therefore, due to the fact that the Empire finds the Inquisitors and their primary mission to be unnecessary, and they cease to exist as we approach the time period of A New Hope, it's very likely that Kanan and Ezra will not survive at the end of Rebels, as the Emperor is confident that they have removed them as a threat to his rule of the galaxy. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for the Coruscant Livestock Exchange and Exhibition.